So you're at an apologetics conference, and very often when you're at an apologetics conference, there's half the people sitting in the audience who don't know what apologetics is. So it's always helpful to define the thing that you're attending. And I mean, you must be people of faith if you did come out and you're not sure what apologetics really is. But it's summed up very nicely in 1 Peter 3:15. Peter writes this: "Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect." This is actually an apostolic command to be prepared to give some answers for what's going on inside of you with regard to the Lord, and to do it with gentleness and respect. So that's what we're going to attempt to do. We're going to feed you some information that honestly the church hasn't paid enough attention to in the last 50 years or so, and so we find ourselves behind the ball. So let's see if we can't ramp it up a little bit and discover some things that we need to know about with regard to the truth of Christianity. In fact, I was in Seattle, Washington a few weeks ago. No, this is a couple of years ago, this one. I go to Seattle pretty often. By the way, Seattle, or Washington State in general, is thought to be the most unchurched state in the country, right? That's probably right. And if you go to Washington State and ask the people there, what's the most unchurched city in the state of Washington, they know immediately. They go, that's Olympia, which is the state capital. And so imagine my surprise when I get a call in my Biola University office from a couple of students at a college in Olympia, Washington, because you presumably at a secular college, that would be ground zero for skepticism and all kinds of things. So if you're at a secular institution in Olympia, Washington, presumably that is ground zero for skepticism. So imagine my surprise when a couple of guys happened to be Christians. I couldn't believe there were actually Christians at this campus. And they started a Christian club on this campus. Well, they were pretty smart guys, and they were actually business majors, and they discovered that if they start a Christian club on the campus, that the administration is obligated to give them handfuls of money. Good for them. So they started a club. They got it signed off by some faculty member. They went into the administration and said, "Give us our money." And they laid it down. So they're walking around with cash, wondering what to do with it. And their idea was, okay, let's contact some Christian thinkers and writers and speakers and debaters and so on, and maybe we can bring some of them up to campus. And so they called me. I was their first experiment. I was the guinea pig, If Hazen will do it, maybe we can ease some of the better speakers in, So when I heard what they were up to, I was all for it. So they buy me a plane ticket, and I'm flying up to SeaTac, the major airport up there. They picked me up in some rundown college car, and we were late for some event that they had set up. And so I leap into the car, and they take off down Interstate 5. We're going gangbusters. They pull off the freeway when we get to Olympia. They drive a couple of blocks. They pull into a college parking lot. They park the car. They leap out, and off they run into the building with me, jogging behind. They open the door. We go inside, again, late for some event, and something catches my eye on a wall over here. I look over there, and there's a giant poster about yay big. And it's my face. That's really startling when you walk into a building and you go, good grief. And not only that, but there were flames under, somebody had painted in flames under my face. And the name of this event that they were advertising with this poster was "Come Barbecue the Christian." Now, turns out these guys were marketing majors in the business school, and they thought this would really turn out a crowd. Well, they were right. Plus there was a whole barbecue theme. In fact, when I saw the big thing on the wall, I saw a guy walk by with a wheelbarrow lined in foil. And it was just filled with chicken wings from like the best barbecue place in town. The smell was like wafting down the hall, drawing people out in zombie-like fashion, following the smell. So we all follow the guy with the wheelbarrow around the corner into a decent-sized lecture hall. Again, I thought it was going to be 4 chairs and 4 guys with peanut butter sandwiches, But I walk in and it's standing room only. There are undergraduate students and graduate students and people in white lab coats, and there's janitors, and people's moms were there, I'm like, good heavens. I mean, people really thought this was a great idea. You get to watch the Christian be, roasted over an open spit, And then you get to celebrate by eating chicken wings from the best place in town. It's actually a very clever idea if you wanted to get a turnout. They weren't exactly thinking about what I was going to do, but, hey, they set it up, they got the crowd out, and they say, now it's your turn, Hazen. So I walk out into the middle of the stage. It's kind of a stage like this, honestly. And I mean, all they said was, here's Craig Hazen. He's here to answer your questions. And if you do that for a little while, then we'll let you go to the wings, Oh, so I gave a quick 3 to 5 minute opening, greeting, and then I said, all right, let's hear your questions. And so they start asking some questions, and I got to tell you, the questions have changed over time. They've changed. The questions have gotten stupider. Yeah, I mean, it was as if every question that was being asked was chapter and verse, some problem that Dan Brown had, and he wrote about it in the Da Vinci Code, So weird. It's like, really? That's the best you can do with regard to asking tough questions, quoting the Da Vinci Code? So that was kind of annoying. And I mean, but this was an important time of their lives. This is a time in college where you get these forums where you get to ask the big questions. And they really couldn't, come up with much. It was kind of disappointing. In fact, at one point, the questions just dried up. And they're just staring at me. Well, I'm staring at them back. Because they don't get the wings till I say so, So I'm standing there, yep. Mm-hmm. And I see a guy out in the middle, and he's nudging his neighbor, because there's nobody moving, you see, and this guy's going, ask the question. And his neighbor goes, okay. He's right there, and his neighbor just sheepishly raises his hand, but I'm up here looking for motion like RoboCop, And I see this hand start to go up, and I go, you. He's like, so do you believe in baptism? Strange question for a forum like that. And I said, sir, not only do I believe in it, I've seen it done. So there's this pause, as that sinks in. Then all of a sudden, everybody laughed. Oh, my goodness. I got to tell you, that was so important because when they started to laugh, the shields went down somehow, And everybody was in such a tense mode before that, Like it was just a big game of gotcha, make him look stupid, let's roast him over the spit, But once they started laughing, you actually tell even by their posture, they're kind of, leaning back in their chair a little bit more, And I got to tell you, they started asking questions that were really on their mind, And like, I remember the first question vividly. Some guy, he was very serious. I think he was probably a neuroscience student at the college. And he raises his hand and he says, so I'm just curious, no offense meant by this question, but is there a chance that you were dropped on your head as a child? He thought that might actually be the answer to my religious issues, or something. But some were just saying, so tell us, how did you become a Christian? That's like just a big softball at a secular college. Like, yeah, So I got to tell them, give them my testimony, and have a great time, sharing with them about how the Lord transformed me and the whole thing. Some people were very interested in that. I wish that had come earlier in the talk because time really was over, and they did need to get to those wings, And so finally, my host stood up and said, yes, it is time. Let's thank you for your kind attention, and we release you to the wings, Well, so these people were, they were rushing over to the wings, and a lot of these people were pretty holier than thou and sanctimonious and so on, during the Q&A time. But man, when I came to getting over to the wings, watch out, there were people in walkers being knocked down. It wasn't quite that bad, but man, You didn't want to be under their feet, as they were stomping in their boots heading for the wings. Oh, and clearly there were a lot of architecture majors or structural engineering majors at the college and in that particular forum. You know how I know that? Because they gave them little plates. But they were able to build towers of chicken wings. With flying buttresses for support, and drawbridges. And no, not quite that bad. But I remember the people walking around just balancing these things. So they're over getting their wings, and there's this weird ending to the whole episode. Somebody wanted to talk to me, so I'm on a stage about like this, talking over here to this person, leaning down, trying to pay attention to what they're saying. And I've learned to use my peripheral vision when I'm on college campuses, because you got to see what's coming at you, So I'm talking here, and I see some motion over here. Somebody's up on the stage, and they're coming around the bend. Turns out there was a woman. She had a big plate of wings. She has some stairs here. She's coming at me. She's eating one. She's got some schmutz on her face already, and she's heading at me. She walks over, leans right over me as I'm talking to the person, and just goes, "Hey, hey!" And I look up, and she's right there. I like a little more personal space than that, so I'm backing up. She's waving a wing at me while holding her plate. It's like, "Yeah. So here's my thing." I go, "Yes, ma'am. What's your thing?" She goes, "There aren't enough women in the Bible." Like I'm in charge of that. So it's such a weird question that I think she's a plant from the drama department sent to torture me, And so I think I'm just going to play along with this. I'm going, "Oh, I totally know what you mean." And she goes, "Yeah?" And I go, "Yeah, like the three wise men. Should have been the three wise women." She goes, "Yeah." And I said, "That makes so much more sense, for goodness sakes. If it were three women, for goodness sakes, they would have gotten there in time to deliver the baby. And they would have brought practical gifts like a baby blanket, a pacifier, and maybe a casserole." And she goes, yeah. You know what? You get it. And she walks away. Well, what's the moral of that story? Here it is. What in the world are we afraid of? Really, I go to the heart of darkness, a secular university campus in Olympia, Washington, and talk to very secular students, who really get all of their information about God from the Da Vinci Code. It doesn't get much worse. And that's the best they can do. The point is, you get even a little bit of education. You come out to a conference even like this, and you will be loaded for bear. You will enjoy the conversation. We don't want you to go out and start a fight, but we want you to be confident when you go out that you actually have something interesting, relevant, and important to say. And I think that's the command that we see in 1 Peter 3:15. He wants us to be able to engage people. Not all of us are going to be called to go to the highest levels and debate on big stage and big platforms, but we all have neighbors and coworkers and relatives, and sometimes even our closest believing friends and relatives have some difficult questions, and we're called to help them with those as best we can, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to equip you the best we can to be able to answer those questions like we're commanded in 1 Peter 3:15.